Hello and welcome to Pressbox 87, week number 5. I'm Steve Salk, and I'll be bringing you highlights from last week's games as well as this week coming up in the high school football world in the Burlington County League. Featuring this week, scores from last week, highlights from last week's TV game, Delran and Florence, the standings, this week's games, and including a preview of this week's TV game, Cherokee at Willingboro. Should be a good one this weekend. And we're going to look at last week's scores first. Started off on Friday night. Kennedy, a 1-point victory over Lenape, 14-13. In the Liberty Division, Cherokee escaping the Holy Cross team, 21-14, a 7-point victory. Rancocas Valley, the biggest upset of the week, beating Willingboro 26-20. Rancocas Valley lost to Cherokee by only 4 points the week before, so they were raring to go against Willingboro. Willingboro may have been looking ahead to Cherokee this weekend, so Willingboro suffers its first setback against Rancocas Valley. In the Freedom Division, in our TV game, which we'll be talking about later, Delran 21, Florence 6. Other games, Burlington Township 28, Bordentown nothing. Morristown 25, Burlington 21. Burlington was coming off a big upset of Florence the week before. Northern Burlington 35, Maple Shade nothing. Palmyra 40, Riverside 6. And in the non-league contest last week, Cherry Hill East destroyed Shawnee 40-14. And in our continuing effort to keep you up to date as the Cinnamon Pirates progress into the Olympic Patriot Conference, their first league game last week, Woodrow Wilson shellacked them 38-0. So the same story for the Pirates in the Olympic Patriot that they suffered in the Burlington County Liberty Division. And we'll be back with highlights from last week's TV game, Delran and Florence, coming up right after this. Welcome back to Pressbox for week number 5. It's time now to look back at last week's TV game, Delran and Florence. Delran came out on top 21-6, and what everybody thought would be a tight ball game, it was close in the first half as Florence took a 6-0 lead, but Tony Sacca and the Delran Bears came back in the second half, and they won it 21-6. Let's look at those highlights now. We start off in the second quarter. Florence with the ball, and on the option, it's a pitch to Steve West. He goes to the outside and in for the score from 2 yards out, capping off a 67-yard drive for the Flashes. The point after was no good. 6-0 Florence leads. But that was it for Florence. From then on, it's all Delran. They came back in the third quarter with 8-12 left. Third and goal from the board. Sacca sidearming it to Verratti for the score. 74-yard drive for the Bears. The point after was good. It's a 7-6 Delran lead. Sacca once again on 3rd and 7. This time a perfect strike to Ellison. Ellison managed to stay in bounds. That ends a 67-yard drive. The point after was good. 14-6 Delran with 2:02 left in the third quarter. Then, with 4 minutes and 30 seconds left in the game, Steve Grello gets the call. He jumps 25 yards into the end zone, capping it off a 71-yard Delran drive. The point after was good. Grello celebrates with his teammates. Delran wins it 21-6 over Florence, and Grello celebrates with a point to the crowd and a toss behind the back. So it ended Delran 21, Florence 6. The MVP has to be Bears quarterback Tony Sacca. Now listen to these stats, folks. In the first half, he was a 3 for 8 with 3 interceptions. He came back strong in the second half, went 5 for 8, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns. That gives him a total for 9 for 16, 184 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions on the day. Not that great, but when you compare his second half to the first half, it's like 2 different ball games. The difference in the ball game, Coach Jim Donahue went to a 1-back formation in the second half and added a wide receiver to the offense. That was the difference. Sacca was able to find anybody he wanted in that second half. Defensive star of the game was Florence's Todd Hayes. He had 2 interceptions in the first half while Delran was driving, and that kept Florence in the game early. They had a 6-0 halftime lead. And now it's time to look at the standings after last week's action. First in the Liberty Division, Cherokee stands on top alone in the Liberty Division after Willingboro's loss. They are 2-0 in the conference, 4-0 overall. Willingboro now 2-1 in the Liberty Division, 3-1 overall. Pemberton, Kennedy, and Rancocas Valley all standing at 2-1 within the conference. Rancocas Valley, doing a fine job and really surprising some people as they are at 2-1. Next comes Holy Cross, Greg Luzinski's squad, 1-2 in the conference, 2-2 overall. Shawnee, 1-2 in the conference and 1-4 overall. And Lenape stands at 0-4, both in the league and overall. Turning to the Freedom Division, in which all the games were within their division, Northern Burlington and Delran alone atop that division, both undefeated at 4-0. Two teams at 3-1, Morristown and Palmyra, both at 3-1. Then Florence, Burlington, and Burlington Township at 2-2. Florence losing 2 games in a row after they had projected to be up top in the Freedom Division along with Delran. Next comes the 3 teams who have not won a ball game yet, Maple Shade, Bordentown, and Riverside, all at 0-4. And of course, the Olympic Patriot Division, those Cinnamons and Pirates, 0-1 in the conference after this week's loss to Woodrow Wilson, and 0-5 overall. And we'll talk more about them a little bit later. And we'll have a review of this week's ball games coming up after this. Welcome back to Press Box, week number 5. Steve Sockin with you. Now it's time to run down this week's schedule of ball games in the Liberty and Freedom divisions, and hopefully I'll give you some winners too. Starting off with the Liberty Division, Holy Cross is going to be at Shawnee. Both teams 1-2. I'm going to pick Holy Cross in this one. Greg the Bull Luzinski needs another victory, and I'm pulling for Holy Cross during this one. My upset of the week is going to be Pemberton at Rancocas Valley. Rancocas Valley is going to take this one. Both teams are 2-1, but RV, a strong game last week, beating Willingboro, and they're sky high after that upset. They're going to prove to everybody they're for real. They want to go to 3-1 and stay within striking distance of first place in the Liberty Division. They're going to take this one. Turning to the Freedom Division, Bordentown is at Delran. This one's not even going to be close. Bet the house on Delran. They're undefeated. It's going to be a blowout. They're going to go to 5-0 and make everybody catch up to them. Maple Shade at Burlington. Burlington wants to win this one. They're going to. They want to stay in the race for the Freedom Division. Everybody's going to have to keep up with Delran this week, so everybody's going to need a win. Maple Shade has yet to win a ball game, so it should be a pretty easy one for Burlington City. Burlington Township is at Riverside. Riverside also has yet to win this one. Burlington Township also needs a win to stay up with the others. They are 2-1. They need to go to 3-1 to stay in the hunt. Palmyra at Florence. This is going to be a good ball game. Palmyra now 3-1, but I think that's a little deceiving. And Florence 2-2. That also deceiving. I think the Flashes are going to win this one. They need a win after last week's defeat to stay in the race and also prove to everybody that they are as good as everybody thought they were at the beginning of the season. They're going to need a victory, and I think they're going to pull it off at home at the Pit. Morristown at Northern Burlington. That's going to be a tough game for Northern Burlington because all the other teams ahead of them are facing teams who have not won. Morristown is a good ball club, so it's going to be tough, but Northern Burlington needs a victory here because Delran's going to have a blowout, and they need to stay close as they are also undefeated, so they need a victory or else they're going to fall behind in the race for first place. Our non-league game this week has Kennedy at Washington Township. Washington Township in the Olympic American League. It's going to have no effect on the league standings. However, I think Washington Township is going to blow out Kennedy. Washington Township has not lost. They are 4-0, 1-0 in their own league. Kennedy 2-1, and they only beat Lenape by a point last week, so I think they're going to have a tough time with Washington Township. The Olympic Patriot game this week is Deptford at Cinnaminson. Cinnaminson a home game, and we saw what happened last time the Pirates had a home game. They almost beat Willingboro. They failed to do that by just a touchdown. This time, however, it's going to be tougher. Deptford is 2-1, 1-0 in the conference. Cinnaminson has yet to win a ball game. Deptford's going to come away a winner in this one. And we'll be back to look closely at this week's TV game, which is going to be a doozy. Cherokee at Willingboro. We'll do that in just a minute. Stay tuned. And welcome back once again to Press Box 87 for week number 5. Time now to look at this week's TV game. This one is a doozy. Cherokee and Willingboro. First, let's look at last year's game. Cherokee won at 7-3, but on a controversial illegal man downfield call, Willingboro had a touchdown called back. Here's how it went. Fourth quarter, score tied at 0-0. 3 minutes, 29 seconds left in the ball game. A 3rd and 5 for the Chimeras from the 9-yard line. Sam Beverly goes back, as we see here, throws to Mitchell, number 7, on the play. He struggles, gets into the end zone, but the side judge on the right side of your screen calls the play dead, goes over to the referee, calls an illegible man downfield penalty. The 3rd time in the ballgame that call was made. They had to settle for a 31-yard field goal, did Willingboro. They went up 3-0. As we look at the play again, it looks like the referee may have called the penalty on number 85. He's on the far right. It looks, however, from our vantage point that he is lined up as a tight end, as he does not stay into block. He just goes into his pattern, and it looks from our vantage point, although we are a little bit behind and to the right of the play, and the side judge is right along it, it looks from our vantage point, as I said, that he is just a tight end. Otherwise, as Gene Prince said last year when the call was made, really difficult to tell why that call was made, and questionable at that. So a controversial call led to a 7-3 Cherokee victory. If Willingboro gets that touchdown at 6-0, that could have changed the whole complexity of the game. Willingboro would have had the momentum and the lead. Instead of 3-0, it would have been 6-0. Cherokee came back to score, and it ended up 7-3. So a whole lot of revenge going into this one for Willingboro, and both coaches are going to have something to say about this one, I'm sure. We had a chance to catch up with Cherokee's Jim Horner earlier this week.
Welcome to Cherokee High School in Marlton, New Jersey. Gene Prince here for Pressbox in week number 5. With me, Coach Jim Horner of the Chiefs. And Jim, we've had you 4 times since we started back in '83, and you've won all 4, so I guess we're a good luck charm for you.
Well, I didn't know that, but I'll tell you what, I'm sure glad you're doing this game because I'm going to need some luck this week.
This week, a very important game against the Chimeras. You beat Holy Cross last week, 21-14. The Chimeras lost to Rancocas Valley, 21-14. And since you played Rancocas Valley, I'll let you tell our fans how tough they really are.
Well, Rancocas Valley, okay. Rancocas Valley is very tough. I knew that going into the game. I think I don't think our players realized that quite as much because of their past history, but I knew it because I know Coach Laz and how hard he works and how hard he worked his players. I know a lot of people sitting up in the stands Saturday night. We sit up in that coaches area with all the coaches, and some of those guys said, gee, I didn't realize they were that tough. I said, I did. I said, you play them. They play hard. They play good, solid football, and I really believe they are a contender in this league this year. And I felt that at the beginning of the year. As a matter of fact, in one of the papers I put that they were one of the contenders. Of course, we're playing one of the contenders this week in Willingboro. But I think Laz has done an excellent job, and we felt very fortunate in coming back in that game. And I think, as Laz said, I think our kids showed a little character in that game, getting behind and coming back. But his kids showed some character in that game. We marched right down the first drive we have, got 8-0, and they marched right back down, make it 8-8. And that was... So they're the type of things I love to see in our league. I see a lot of parity in our league. I look at Kennedy, and they're a much improved football team. And, of course, they'd started improving last year, and Willingboro is always tough. You have Pemberton that's loaded this year. Shawnee's going through a rough time with some serious injuries. But you know, beginning of the year, they were very tough, and I'm sure by the time we get to them, they'll be hard. And, you know, a lot of people say, well, Lenape, you know, they don't have anything. I'll tell you what. They played the toughest, closest games I've ever saw. You know, they played a great game against Kennedy. They played Willingboro very tough. They're a good football team. They're going to win some.
Jim, your record 4-0 coming into this one, and for 2 consecutive weeks here on cable, we thought we had ourselves the battle of 2 unbeatens when last week we had Delran in Florence, and the week before that, Florence losing to Burlington City. But it goes along and shows you the parity. You have had 2 games out of the league and 2 within so far. And Jim, why does Cherokee, say in the beginning of the year, decide to go for those out-of-league games as opposed to starting right out in the league itself?
Well, I think basically, to be very honest, our schedule just dictates that, you know, but because we have 2 open dates in the beginning of the season. When Cinnaminson dropped us, we'd always played Cinnaminson and an outside team, so that allowed us to pick up another team. And we wanted to go out and get the very best football teams that we could. We picked up, of course, East Brunswick, who's a perennial power up in North Jersey or Central Jersey, and Chester, who was the defending champions last year. We picked them up on a 1-year basis to fill in the open spot. And I understand right now that we've just signed a contract with Pennsbury out of that league. So, you know, we want to play the best. I know people have always been talking to us about playing Central Bucks West, or you know, and that'd be a great game and draw a lot of interest, and I'm sure it would. But you know, what people forget, we're not like colleges can wiggle-waggle some schedules around. We have to sort of go by, you know, what our schedules dictate within our conference. And so maybe someday down the road, if they open up and we're open, I'd be glad to play them. I know they're a great football team and have a great tradition, and I think we have a fine tradition here at Cherokee.
Absolutely. What about the South Jersey #1 position that you're holding by most of the papers? Is that really a detriment in some way?
It's a very difficult task to hold that. I think it's only been, in I think 1985, I'm not sure if we were rated number 1 in the very beginning, but I think that was the time of once we went through it. I think Camden one time was rated number 1 and went all the way through the season. I think it's only been done once or twice. I know we did it one year. I'm not sure which year it was, but I know we did it one time and Camden did it one time, and all the years that they've done the poll. Even Penn, well, no, Pennsauken, I guess, did it last year. I'm not sure if they were rated right away at number 1. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think they were rated 2.
One or two right now. But, it's so difficult because it gives young people, any team, an opportunity to really get fired up for that one game. And, we played a very good Holy Cross team. I didn't mean to not mention them before because we played a very tough game with them last week. And they're a fine football team. They've got a lot of spirit. They have a lot of young talent. And I think Greg Mazinski and company there is going to do a great job. And I'd like to say this, it's a lot of people that maybe look at Greg as just being a figurehead. I've got to know him a little bit. And that man loves the game. And I highly respect someone of that nature because he could be sitting back and just enjoying life, but he'd rather go out and work with young people. And I think what that's going to do is, again, bring more parity into the league. If you take a look at it, there was a one time in this league we had the Group 4 championship, the Group 3 championship, and the parochial championship all in the same league. And I think that's going to come back.
Some interesting comments by Cherokee coach Jim Horner. Gene Prince also had a chance to catch up with Willingboro coach Ty Belford just before the game.
Welcome to Carl Lewis Stadium in Willingboro. With me, Coach Ty Belford. Coach, Cherokee, always one of your favorite teams on the schedule. And if you can elaborate a little more on that, if you would.
Yeah, Gene, I'll tell you what. One thing I'd say that our league, the Burlington County Football League, the Liberty Division and the Freedom Division, it's interesting football every week. And you got a chance to see a good RV team coming in and really doing a real good job. Bruce Lazarick, and they beat us last week. They did a good job. And I told my kids last week on Monday, I said, our schedule's the toughest schedule east of Notre Dame. Because, Notre Dame got the number 1 schedule, and we've got the number 2 toughest schedule probably in the country. But we like it that way. We want to play everybody that's good. And of course, Jimmy Horner's program over at Cherokee, year in and year out, has been a great, great football program. And it's been a kind of a beacon for everybody else in the county to kind of deal with it and to live up to.
Ty, it was 2 years ago when Kyle Horner really put the ball in the air against you guys and beat you with 6 touchdown passes in that game. But, your team is the only team to beat Cherokee in this decade.
Yeah, but I think everybody forgets that we went on and won the state championship that year. And I think that gets obscured in the fact that Kyle had a great football game that night. But then my running back out here, Al Jackson, ran up and down the field for 180 yards on that. So, it was tick for tat. They got the better end of that night. It got a little out of hand quick. But again, that's kind of indicative of the kind of football we play around here. Here we had us getting beat by them, and then Pembroke, we got beat by Pembroke, and then we ended up winning the state championship. And it put us really in good stead. When we got down to playing some real good football teams at the end of the year, we knew what it was like to be in there. So that's the difference. And I think that tonight you're going to see something else like that. They're rated number 1. We were rated number 3, I guess, until we got. Yeah. Now I think we're not even under consideration.
Honorable mention.
Is that what it is? Yeah. How quickly they forget. But you'll see a real great football game tonight. 2 good football programs, and I think it's going to be really interesting.
We saw you 2 weeks ago against Cinnaminson, and the Pirates played a well football game that day. And I thought maybe with the way you broke out in the first half, your team got a little overconfident. Did you feel that?
I don't think so. I just think that you got to always give credit to the guys that you play. And we're in a position now, whenever we play somebody, they play real good. And what happened was that Cinnaminson came to play us that day, and Joaquin Edmonds, he must have had 150 yards or so. He had over 100 yards in the first half against us. And he played a whale of a game. Those Cinnaminson kids were hitting. And, that was a big game for them. And they had a shot at us, and they gave us a good shot. And that's the way everybody plays us. People don't allow us, and I think if you see Cherokee, they've been playing too, and they haven't been really run away from anybody. And every game they've been in has been basically a tight game, and that's what it's going to be. Nobody's going to let us or Cherokee or, say, a Pemberton come in and just, run up 50 points or something. You're just not going to do it. Not in this league, you won't.
All right, Coach, let's talk about tonight, and your defense is going to have to stop a pretty good quarterback in Bobby France.
Yeah, Bobby, I know Bob. I see him at football camp. A very nice young man. And as a matter of fact, he got his first start basically coming and beating us last year. you know, and he drove his team down the field with 48 seconds. I'll never forget looking up at the clock, you know, and I'm looking at the clock, 48 seconds. The guy throws one in the end zone, sticks it for a TD to win the game 7-3 against us. They're a very, very good offensive football team, and Jimmy does a great job. Him and his staff over there, they just do a great job year in and year out. And my defensive kids like Mike Smith and my linebackers Todd Lane and also Dave Roberts and James Bailey and kids like my secondary like Corey Sales and Willie Washington and Sean Scott and Don Harrison. Those guys are going to really have to play a whale of a game, you know. We got a kid, Steve Everett. If he has a great game tonight at our defensive end position, you're going to see some good stuff happening. And if you call number 43 a lot, you can say this, the guy we're playing, okay? The guy's supposed to play tonight, so hopefully he'll do well.
All right, your offense. Mark Collins showed us that he can play quarterback against the Pirates, and Donald Crump, of course, showed us he can run against almost anybody.
Well, we always like to say here at Willingboro, and we always talk about barrel ball. And I read an article, somebody said barrel ball is dead or something like that. It's not dead. We've had, in the last 10 years, we've had some great tailbacks. Every one of them's a Division I tailback. Donald Crump falls into that mold. He's a great football player, but other than that, he's a great young man. And my man Marky Collins, he's just coming around. Kid never took a snap. Now he's out here playing quarterback and doing an excellent job.
Well, that's it for this week. For Pressbox 87, stay tuned for our TV game of the week, and it's going to be a good one. You'll want to stay tuned, so go ahead and get some refreshments and lay back because it's going to be a great game. It's Cherokee at Willingboro next up here on Channel 8.